My entire world had fallen apart 3 months prior, and my relationship with Greg, my boss, had progressed from office whispers to a full-fledged scandal. However, nothing could have prepared me for the anguish of witnessing Jason, my husband, uncover the truth. 3 months after my affair with my boss was made public, my husband confronted me in the most devastating way imaginable. Jason had always been the epitome of generosity and trust, and I had betrayed that trust in the most unforgivable way back then. I felt as though I was living my life on autopilot, knowing that what I was doing was wrong. But I justified it with excuses that I told myself I deserved the attention and excitement that Greg brought into my life. Jason and I have been married for 6 years, and although our relationship had begun passionately, it felt like the spark had died over time as Jason became preoccupied with his career, leaving me feeling neglected a lot. Everyone started having casual talks in the break room and spending harmlessly long evenings at work. Greg exuded charisma, self-assurance, and attentiveness. Jason didn't show me anymore. He listened to my frustrations, laughed at my jokes, and made me feel seen. His attention was intoxicating, like a gust of fresh air in a stagnant room. Soon our conversation shifted from work-related topics to personal matters. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we had crossed every boundary. The physical aspect of our affair was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Greg was passionate and made me feel desired, a feeling I hadn't had from Jason in years. But no matter how thrilling it was, it didn't make it right. I was betraying my husband, the man who had always stood by me, the man who loved me unconditionally. Deep down, I knew I was making a terrible mistake. But in the moment, I convinced myself it was just a fleeting affair. Something meaningless, yet I couldn't ignore the truth. I was trapped in a mess of my own making, and it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. That fateful Monday arrived. Jason had taken a day off work, but I had a meeting with Greg. We'd arranged to meet at a nearby hotel, a routine we had fallen into. I never anticipated what would happen next. As I sat in the hotel room with Greg, the sound of the door slamming open shattered the air. My heart dropped. Jason's voice trembled. The room reverberated with anger and incredulity. "What the hell is this, Karen?" he yelled, and I froze. Greg sat across from me, his face pale with shock and obviously at a loss for how to respond. He stood in the doorway, his normally composed demeanor replaced by raw anger, his face flushed and his eyes burned with betrayal. I stammered, barely able to form words. How could I possibly justify shattering the life we had built together? His voice broke. "Is this what you've been doing behind my back? Sleeping with him? My own wife with my boss?" he asked, and I stood there. But Greg quickly brushed past me and fled the room without saying anything. I watched helplessly as the man I had risked everything for vanished, leaving me alone to face the destruction I had caused. His eyes were no longer warm, and he looked at me as if I were a stranger. His voice was steady but dripping with pain, cutting through the silence. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Karen, after everything we had been through, I had no way to respond. No excuses left to make. No words that could repair the damage I had caused. I had broken everything, and I had betrayed Jason in the most unforgivable way. The weight of my decisions weighed heavily on me, and I stayed in the hotel room for hours on end. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a destruction of the life we had built together, and now it was over. In the weeks that followed, Jason and I hardly spoke to each other. I made a valiant attempt to apologize, but he would not listen. He left our house to live with a friend in search of safety, leaving me to deal with the fallout from my choices. The affair not only destroyed our marriage, but also started to ruin every facet of my life at work. Whispers spread like wildfire. I became the target of office gossip, the woman who had let her personal mistakes ruin her career. The judgment was relentless, but none of it compared to the pain of losing Jason. I could see how much he was hurting, and knowing that I had cause, it was unbearable. I missed him deeply, but I also OD why he needed space. He was trying to process the unimaginable, and I couldn't fault him for distancing himself. 3 months passed, and there was no sign of reconciliation. We exchanged occasional texts or emails, but his words were curt and his anger lingered. The wounds I had inflicted were far from healed. Then one evening he called and asked to meet. My heart raced as I clung to the hope that this could be the start of mending the damage I caused. We met at a quiet cafe. The moment I saw him, I knew he had changed. He looked drained, worn down by the weight of everything that had happened. I wanted to reach out to hold him, to offer comfort. But I knew that wasn't why he had come. He needed answers. He needed closure. You've had plenty of time. I've tried to be patient, but I can't keep pretending everything's fine. The trust is gone. You've broken me, and I don't even know if I can put myself back together, he said in a cold, unforgiving tone to Karen. I said, I know I've hurt you, Jason, with a trembling voice. He looked at me with a mix of grief and rage, and I never wanted to hurt you. I can't take back what I did. I was lost and made the worst choice of my life. You injured me. The tension between us was excruciating from the minute you began lying, he added, to the moment you decided to betray me with him. Then, suddenly, Jason got up and hit me. I was shocked when the slap's loudness reverberated throughout the room. I stared at him, expecting to see some sorrow, but he exhibited none. His face was contorted in agony, yet my cheek burned and tears filled my eyes. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive you, he continued in an emotionally charged voice, and I'm not sure if I want to try. Without saying another word, he turned and left me behind. That moment was a breaking point because I was paralyzed by the weight of my regrets. The emotional hit was crushing, but the physical anguish was subsiding. Jason had reached his breaking point. He could no longer pretend or hold out hope that things would return to how they were at that moment. Every day I live with the reality of my actions. Betrayal leaves deep scars, and sometimes no apology, no matter how sincere, can repair the damage. I knew our marriage was truly over, and life moved on, but not in the way I had hoped. Jason eventually found someone new while I tried to put the pieces of my life back together. The affair had cost me dearly: my marriage, my dignity, and my career.